So between family and work, I've got very limited time to work on my various hobbies and things that interest me. So it's really important to me that I have a space where I can go and access my various tools and equipment very, very quickly. In order to do this, I feel like I've got to be very organized and have a spot for every tool. A few months back, I began building out my garage home office, and I'm absolutely loving this space. But this current version of my tool and charging wall is bothering me. The double-sided tape I used to secure everything down is failing. I need more room on it, and it's just not living up to my expectations. I threw it together one weekend, and ever since, it's just kind of bothered me. And I'm ready to replace it and get something much better installed. Ultimately, the goal with this charging or tool wall is going to be to have everything fit aesthetically and be organized, look great in the office, and give me quick access to my most commonly used little tools and gear. But first, it's out with the old so we can get in with the new. Okay, so I want to have two main parts to this video. One is just kind of my tips and tricks on how I did this and some of the products I used to make it happen. I recommend you listen to that if you're actually going to do this project. And there's just some tidbits in there that I would pay attention to if I were going to do this again. And then the latter part of it, I'm just going to kind of show you my wall, what I put on it, how I fastened things to it, and what I'm using for exact. Stay tuned. I think it turned out really great, and I think you're going to find some information that if you're going to do this yourself, might be worth listening to. Okay, so there are like a million different pegboard systems you can find online. A really popular one online or on YouTube is the IKEA Scadus board, but there's also just pegboard you can pick up from your local Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. But ultimately, I went with what's called the wall control system. The company's called Wall Control, and they make these awesome little panels, and they're pre-cut, and they've got little slots in them and holes. And they're a great way to make exactly what I'm looking for here. The only downside to them, of course, is they're made of steel, and in order to cut or edit them in any way, you've got to use some tools, some power tools to get it done. The other downside to using these, of course, is that if you're going to mount them, they mount flat to the wall without a lot of space to throw cords and any kind of chargers in behind them. So if you're going to have it offset off the wall, you've got to use another product, which are these little spacers you can find on Amazon, to kind of space the panels off the wall and allow you to put a bunch of things in behind them so you can't see any of it. A big part of this, like I said earlier, was to make it aesthetic. I don't want to see any cords or anything hanging down, just kind of looking bad. It's got to look very clean. It's important to look nice on the wall. So those are the two main things. You're going to need the wall control panels, and you're going to need some of these pegs. Now, the other thing is that the wall control panels themselves are so thick that the pegs, at least all of the ones I looked at online, and none of them were long enough to go all the way through the wall control system and into the spacer. You have to buy an additional bolt that can go that entire length. This took quite a bit of test and retest. I had a bunch of bolts laying around the house. Of course, none of them work for this, so I had to go down to my local hardware store, and I believe that the bolt ended up being an M10 with a thread of 1.25. I'll try to get the specifics of that and also put that in the description down below. Now, the other thing I was concerned about was, are these spacers going to be able to hold up the weight of everything I'm going to put on this wall? And I can report that they do. Luckily, my wall panels lined up pretty well with some of the studs in my wall, and I was able to drill right into the studs to make that work and make it sturdy. Which, by the way, I got to show you this stud finder. If you're not using one of these stud finders, you're doing it wrong. Okay, this stud finder, when the stud lines up, it lights up these red lines right here. You know, I've seen a lot of like the pointer stud finders out there, and they suck. I definitely recommend using something like this for a project like this. I love the way this stud finder works. Okay, all right, that was a bit of a side note there, but anyway, I really like that stud finder or ones like it. Another interesting side note, if you're going to do it this way with the pegs and the wall control system, wall control panels, maybe if they were made a couple years ago, because my old ones had definitely plenty of room, but they changed the way that the slot works on the back side of the panel. It's now an obligated, like, oval shape that will only fit a much smaller screw. It will not fit a bolt of quite this size. So you're going to need to drill that out and make it bigger. When it goes to actually mounting and hanging these panels on the wall, I recommend first, well, number one, I recommend you use a laser level. Buy a cheap one at Harbor Freight or something like that. You don't need some crazy laser level, but they definitely will help out on a project like this, because you want the panels to be as evenly level across all three of them as you possibly can, or however many panels you're going to choose. My recommendation is to start hanging one panel at a time. Get all your pegs set up and all your spacers set up, and then move on to the next one, and just kind of make sure they're perfectly level as you go along. Okay. Next, you're going to get to the point where you're putting together the panel. Now, for the ones that don't include any charging, obviously those are very easy. I've used a number of hangers and wall control items that come directly from wall control themselves, and I'm also going to 3D print off a couple of things, or have in my new setup, for holstering various tools and stuff like that. There is a great community around building and 3D printing holsters for wall control devices. Probably a larger one though for IKEA Scatus and different 3D prints like that. But if you've got a 3D printer, there are some wall control prints available online, as well as for the IKEA Scatus or whatever panel you choose or pick. Okay, now with all that out of the way, let's get into the actual panel, what it looks like now, and what I've got hanging on it. Okay, so here is the final product in all its glory. And originally the design for the board was going to be split up into 3 sections, which is exactly what I ended up doing. I've got my tool wall over here. In the middle I've got my tech kind of section, just my display. And then finally for the chargers and any kind of electronic cords, anything of that matter. I also, if you'll notice, I've got one of my hats just kind of hanging up there for display, and my Peak Design backpack. Just kind of chilling. I think it looks cool when it's hanging up like that. Up above, I purchased this shelf off of Amazon, and I really dig the way that it turned out. It's a pretty sturdy shelf, and up above there, I've just got some kits that I use from time to time for like hanging things on walls, and some various, tech stuff, different cables and chargers and stuff like that I don't have down here. So when it comes to the tool wall, I just wanted quick access to the screwdrivers, which I use often. And the wall control panel only came with one of these sets or screwdriver holsters. I did have to 3D print this one, and I think it turned out fantastic. I think I might like it even more than the one that came from wall control. You can find a lot of great stuff online to 3D print things. Anyway, I've got plenty of room in the middle here for more tools if I ever want to in the future. And I'm always finding myself using my little Milwaukee knife there and my 3D print knife. Up above, I've just got some Allen key sets that I use pretty often. I find myself using those tools, screwdrivers and those, probably more than anything. Then I've got a little socket here from where I plan to maybe one day put some sockets down here that I use pretty often. That will probably be what that space is going to be for. So next up, I just hung my drone up here, and you'll notice that I do have a charging spot set up for the controller. As well, the iPad, which is kind of magnetic already, actually works out perfect in this setup. I find myself using this a lot for like FaceTime calls or watching how-to videos, especially when I'm putting something together here on the bench. That could be really helpful. And it's a great place to just kind of display some of your other tech. I got my GoPro here. And a little 3D printed mountain logo for the channel. Over here, I've got my charger setup. Now, I ended up using a lot of black zip ties in this setup, and I think that those are probably, honestly, the best thing that you can use. That you can barely see them, and they hold everything really nice and tight. And then you got there too, I've got the cords run through the back of the panel through a rubber grommet. Those grommets came in handy, and I think they really bring the setup to the next level. Just makes it look that much cleaner. I just got some GoPro chargers, my DJI mic. This setup can accommodate any kind of battery charger, and still look pretty good. Got my DJI Air 2S batteries. And then I also wanted to make sure that I had a spot to charge just random things. I didn't want to always have, or I won't always want to charge things that are just going to be on this board up here. I wanted to be able to also charge, like my Rabbit there I've got, and various other tech. I usually will pop my mic in here, charge that. And I use this little Anchor charging station to do that. Just got a couple USB ports on it, and it works fantastic. So it's a great spot to plug in just about anything, even like my cell phone or my laptop. I can plug in there and charge up. So there it is, folks. That's my charging wall setup. I think it turned out great. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below if you have any thoughts or any questions about what I did here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Suck.